Hi friends of Sailing Vessel Easy. Thanks for following my channel, thanks for coming back. I have important news for you, so let me start with that first. It's sad news because there was a first plane they wouldn't let into Bonaire, and this was exactly the place Kirsten would have been on. So I had found out the way to the airport, washed the towels, cleaned up the whole boat, and that was a real task. Made everything nice for her and ready, and then 15 hours before she would have landed, I got this WhatsApp message that she was already back on her way home because they wouldn't let her on the plane in Hamburg. So I'm stuck in paradise, all on my own on the boat, and it's nothing you can do about it. Coronavirus had led to the situation that nearly all islands and harbors in the Caribbean and also in Europe are closed down, so everybody just stays put where they are. Let me still give you a short glimpse of this lovely place here before I'll continue the videos in the chronological order, to start at Guadeloupe, where we arrived after the Atlantic crossing. As we walk to the bow of the boat, you will realize that the dark blue water turns into bright green just under the keel of Easy. So this is where the sand and coral gravel turns into the slope of the reef with all the coral. This is the view to the small island of Klein Bonaire, and this is following the coastline to the north with a couple of boats moored behind me. Here you see the mooring blocks in the water, which is just concrete blocks with lines attached to them. Snorkeling and diving just around the boat is really beautiful. And right next to us is anchored the boat of our friends Henny and Maarten from Holland, who arrived shortly after me on this island. Not only them, but all the other boats in the mooring field, probably 30 boats or so, are all put to this place. Nobody's moving anywhere. And this is what the coastline looks like. There's a dive shop with nobody diving because there are no tourists on the island except some sailors. Now you know in what kind of situation I'm currently stuck, but more about that in a later video. Let's now proceed with the videos from Guadeloupe just after the Atlantic crossing. I just announced to show you some videos, but when I went through the material I realized when Kirsten arrived I was so happy spending 2 months together that I didn't really care about taking videos. So I'll show you some photos instead Kirsten has taken with her smartphone. We went to the very eastern tip of the island, which was nice and a lot of surf, and we enjoyed the walk there a lot. This is Pointe-à-Pitre, the main city where the dinghy dock was. We also visited the Museum of Slavery, which is highly recommended, and that's a view of one of the streets and the view from Easy at anchor to the nearby harbor. After a week in Guadeloupe, we undertook a day trip, sailing to the nearby Ile de Sint. The weather was excellent, so we had a first good view of the volcano, which had previously always been covered in clouds. When Klaus and I hiked to the summit, we could see absolutely nothing, but in the incredible amount of rain, we got wet to the very bone. Later, with Kirsten, we drove up there again and enjoyed a lovely long swim in the nice pool with volcanic thermal water surrounded by the tropical rainforest. We caught a nice mooring at the village beach of Terre d'Eau on the main island of the Saint. On Christmas Eve, we decided to hike up the 300-meter high hill with a tower on top of it. Everything begins with a dinghy ride when you live on a sailboat at anchor. This is the dinghy dock, the tourist center, and that's the village. Doesn't show on video that it was over 30 degrees Celsius when we climbed the hill. That equals more than 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Greetings and thank you to all the people in America watching my channel. And of course, thanks for watching to all people in all the other countries too. Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year.
Bonne Noël.
From the Saints. And that's where we came from. That's Guadeloupe. Later, at a mooring at the small island called Ileta Cabrit, we spent a whole day studying the Pelicans' fishing technique. After 10 days on the lovely Île de Sint, we sailed back to Guadeloupe. We headed north along the east coast of one of the two islands called Basse-Terre. We reached De Haye in the afternoon and dropped anchor for 2 nights. As we found out, the BBC crime drama series Death in Paradise is filmed in De Haye. We did not know the series, but Kirsten has already bought the DVDs. We are looking forward to watching the series when we get the chance to meet again, hopefully in the future months. On day 2, we climbed the hill to visit the botanical garden of De Haye. Kirsten loved the marvelous scenery of plants and trees most, while I really liked watching the tiny hummingbirds collecting nectar of the flowers. After 2 days at anchor in De Haye, we left Guadeloupe and headed up further north to Antigua. We cleared in and anchored in English Harbour, which is one of the 2 natural harbours of Antigua. The sheltered anchorage provides space for some 30 yachts. Next to the anchorage is the luxurious Nelson's Dockyard Marina for big boats. The marina includes a small village with picturesque buildings and a very well-kept park-like garden. We spent the following days exploring this part of Antigua on foot. We were still in English Harbour on New Year's Eve and enjoyed the brilliant fireworks directly next to our anchorage. Some days later, we followed the west coast of Antigua and anchored in Five Islands Bay before the next day trip took us to the island of Barbuda. During this sunset, Kirsten and I watched the green spot phenomenon, which did not show up on video. Between the reefs were large patches of seagrass, so we were frequently visited by turtles. Kirsten was feeding these little creatures that looked like small sharks. They're called Remoras and frequently attach themselves to sharks, whales or turtles to travel with them. I was quite astonished that about a dozen of them had attached themselves to the hull of Easy. We frequently swam to the beach or took the dinghy and went for long walks on the probably 10-kilometer long sand beach. Due to strong winds of over 35 knots, we couldn't move for a couple of days. Later on, we sailed about 15 miles north and anchored in front of the narrow strip of sand that separates the Codrington lagoon from the open sea. We found an exciting narrow passage with breaking waves on both sides and took the dinghy to cross the Codrington lagoon and visited the village of Codrington. We met the excellent local guide George Jeffrey. He took us on a trip on his dinghy. First, he showed us a 40-foot container that had been blown for more than a mile by Hurricane Irma. Then we went further up north to the colony of frigate birds. To impress the females, the males blow up their throat to a huge red balloon. The females are black and white, whereas the juvenile birds have a white head. After these lovely days in Barbuda, we set a very early alarm and set sails even before sunset. We even caught 2 fish, a mahi-mahi and a barracuda, but I was extremely unlucky and couldn't land them, so I had them to let go. The weather conditions were excellent, and in summary I think it was one of the nicest sailing days of Kirsten and me ever. The anchorage was fairly rolly, so we went to land whenever possible and explored the lovely island of St. Barth. Meyer, the pilot of this plane, this must have been one of the shortest short-field landings at the airport of St. Barth. On our departure from St. Barth, we passed by Le Grand Bleu, a 130-meter long private motor yacht. Note the owner's toys on deck, a 22-meter long sailboat and a 21-meter motorboat. This is our arrival at the British Virgin Islands. Kirsten didn't like the overnight sail and spent most of the time below decks. The wind changed direction continuously, so to avoid jibes at night, I switched to my twin head sail configuration and had a quiet night. We had a hard time finding nice anchor spots in the British Virgin Islands. All nice spots are plastered with mooring buoys for up to $35 a night, and there were numerous charter yachts and catamarans everywhere. Finally, we found some very nice spots where we stayed for most of the time. Sabre Rock was a building site since Hurricane Irma had destroyed everything 2.5 years ago. This is where the glorious Bitter End Yacht Club used to be. All buildings had been ripped down and are to be constructed from scratch. We anchored for several days in Peter Island and watched rays, turtles, remoras and barracudas. This time we lifted anchor and I took Kirsten to the airport on Beef Island. After 2 lovely months, it was a very sad goodbye, even if we didn't know that we would be separated by the coronavirus for so much longer. When my friend Heine arrived, we stayed another couple of days on the BVIs before we set sail to cross the Caribbean Sea to Bonaire. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'm looking forward to reading and answering all of your comments. Feel free to share the link with all of your friends. So subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!